Welcome to Infidelity Stories. Please like this video and subscribe. We're grateful for each and every one of you. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. When our parents left my younger brother and me alone, I made him an offer he couldn't refuse, which would lead to some of the most exciting days of our life. My name is Junior, and I never imagined to find myself in such a scenario. My little brother, Kvin, and I had an unshakable closeness growing up. He was 5 years younger than me and was always the one I cared after, protected from bullies and assisted with studies. But as time passed, life began to tug us in different directions. I went to college and eventually began working while Kvin was still in high school, trying to figure out who he wanted to be. Our parents were constantly busy with demanding careers that left little time for family. They weren't inattentive but absent frequently, and as soon as I was old enough to drive and take on tasks at home, I took over much of the responsibility for Kvin's care. It never felt like a duty. However, he was pleasant to be around, always upbeat and ready to please. Taking care of him was not a chore. It was simply part of who we were, but everything changed after I moved out. By the time I was 28, I had moved into a modest apartment across town. I didn't spend as much time at home as I should have, and guilt gnawed at me every time I considered how much I was missing in Kvin's life. The carefree little brother I used to know was gradually becoming someone I scarcely recognized, and the fact hurt more than I wanted to admit. One weekend, our parents stated that they would be away for a 3-day business trip, leaving Kvin alone. My mother called, her voice full of concern. "Can you stick with him?" she asked. "He's old enough to handle things, but knowing you're there would make me feel better." I consented, mainly out of remorse. It wasn't like I had anything big scheduled, and spending time with Kvin would help bridge the distance between us. When I arrived, Kvin greeted me at the door with his signature crooked smile. "Stranger, it has been a long time since we last met." He joked and drew me into a short hug. Yeah, I said, rolling my eyes while smiling. "Did you miss me?" He grinned and moved aside to let me enter. The house appeared exactly the Kvin. Neat, but lived in, with a slight aroma of lemon-scented cleanser. Walking inside seemed strangely unreal, like returning to my adolescent years. That first night we spent hours catching up. Kvin discussed school, his friends, and his college ambitions, while I provided details about my own life. It felt good, like old days, to close the gap that had formed between us over time. For a while nothing seemed to have changed. But as the night progressed, I began to notice details about Kvin that I had previously overlooked. He was no longer a small kid. He'd gotten taller, his shoulders broader, and his voice deeper. He exuded a serene confidence and maturity that I had not seen before. And this threw me off. I struggled to connect the youngster I once protected with the young man seated across from me. After supper, Kvin recommended we watch a movie. He remarked something good as he flipped through the options on the television. "Not one of those dull dramas you enjoy?" "Excuse me," I teased while seeming to be offended. "My choice in movies is impeccable." He smirked and finally chose a comedy that we had seen numerous times before. As the opening titles rolled, he sank onto the couch next to me and stretched out his long legs. For a while it was simple to forget about everything else and just live in the moment. We laughed at familiar jokes, recited lines we both knew by memory, and settled into a comfortable pace. But every now and then I noticed Kvin staring at me, not in an unusual or frightening manner, but with an intensity that made my tummy flutter. I dismissed it, telling myself I was simply overthinking things. After all, he is my brother. The way he looked at me was not odd. Was it there? When the movie ended, Kvin stretched and yawned. "I'm going to get a drink," he remarked, standing up and walking for the kitchen. I stayed on the couch, mindlessly going through my phone. A few minutes later, his voice rang forth. "Hey Junior, do you want anything?" "Sure," I responded. "Surprise me." When he returned, he was holding 2 cups of cola. He sat down again, this time a little closer, and handed me one. His knee brushed across mine, causing an odd thrill through me that I couldn't explain. "Thank you," I said, attempting to maintain my voice level. He shrugged and took a sip. "Not an issue." We sat in silence for a while, with only the faint hum of the television filling the room. I tried to focus on my phone, but his presence was strangely distracting. I could feel the warmth flowing from him, and the occasional touch of his knee against mine. It was nothing, I reminded myself. Just proximity. But a small, restless part of me wasn't so certain. So Kvin remarked abruptly, breaking the silence. What is living like in the big city? Do you ever find yourself missing it here? His question was casual, but the way his eyes fastened on mine made me pause. I mean, yes, sometimes I admitted while putting my phone down. However, the situation has changed. I enjoy having my own space, you know? He nodded and leaned back against the couch. I understand that. Still, it feels strange not having you around. The place seems quieter without you. I gave a slight smile. I miss being here sometimes, I said. But things change. People grow up. Yes, he mumbled, his voice quieter and almost forlorn. I suppose they do. Something about the way he said it caused my chest to constrict. As the night progressed, we kept conversing, laughing at old recollections and teasing each other about trivial things. The strange tension I had felt before gradually dissipated, replaced by a reassuring warmth that reminded me how much I missed this. I missed him. By the conclusion of the weekend, as I was driving home, I had come to a realization. Some bonds are too strong to be broken, no matter how far apart we are in life. Kvin wasn't simply my younger brother. He was my anchor, the only constant in my existence. As I drove back to my apartment, I promised myself that I would not let so much time pass before seeing him again. I cast a fleeting glance at him, noting how buried in concentration he appeared. His forehead was slightly wrinkled, and he was wearing a serious expression that I had not seen before. It made him appear older and more mature, which unsettled me. For a brief moment, I saw him not just as my younger brother, but as his own person, complete with his own challenges and complexity. That knowledge threw me off, and I moved slightly to shatter the silence. Well, I replied, keeping my tone light, you'll be out of here soon enough. College, new friends, and an entirely different lifestyle, perhaps, he said with a shrug, but it isn't the Kvin. You've always been someone I could chat to, even when times were terrible tough. I repeated, my brow furrowed. What do you mean? He paused, his attention flitting to the floor before returning to me. Just after Dad started working full-time and Mom grew so busy, I felt like I was mostly on my own, but you were always present. You made things easy. His words hit me hard, and shame washed over me in waves. I had no idea how much my absence had impacted him, how much he had relied on me without ever expressing. So I apologized, Kvin. I mumbled. I didn't realize you felt that way. He shrugged again, but a faint smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. It is not your fault. You were dealing with your own issues, but I'm delighted you are here now, I agreed, reaching across to squeeze his shoulder. And you know I am always available if you need me, right? Yeah, he said, his smile widening. I understand. For a little period, everything seemed normal again. Natural, easy. But when my hand rested on his shoulder, I became acutely aware of the tension in the air. When our eyes met, something in his expression softened, causing me to instinctively withdraw my hand. My cheeks warmed up and I hastily glanced away. Anyway, I explained, clearing my throat. We should probably sleep, it is becoming late. Yeah, he agreed, stretching while standing. A good idea. He moved toward the steps, pausing at the bottom to look back at me. Good night, Junior. Good night, I said. Trying a grin as he went upstairs, I gently exhaled only to realize I'd been holding my breath. My thoughts were jumbled, and I couldn't shake the idea that something between us had changed, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. I turned off the television and went into the kitchen to rinse my glass.